Dr. Rennie, you're here, correct?
Yes, I'm here. Jennifer, do you hear that?
I sure did. Thank you. Good afternoon, Tom. Are you with us?
I am.
You were under alias, so I'm sorry I didn't know who you were. But now I get it, State Farm agent. I got it now.
Hey, so that's how I roll.
Okay. So let's see here. Okay, ready? Okay, welcome to the Public Services Committee, the October 22nd, 2024 committee meeting. A little housekeeping. If you have cell phones, please mute them or turn them off. If you approach a podium to speak, please turn the light on and identify yourself. Clerk, first item.
Number 7, ordinance second reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Cheyenne, adding the urban use overlay district to land located north of East 21st Street and east of and adjacent to Warren Avenue.
Staff report.
Chair and members of the committee, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. The property is located at 2113 Warren Avenue, which is south of East 22nd Street and on the east side of Warren Avenue. Property is zoned MUR, mixed use residential. The zone change application proposes adding the UU urban use overlay zone to the parcel. This does not change the underlying zoning of MUR. The land currently has a single-family residence. The property is currently located in the Downtown Development Authority district. The applicant proposes to redevelop the site with a mix of different uses under one business. Due to site constraints, the ability to meet full requirements, including parking, is difficult at this location. The UU overlay allows for relaxation of design standards to promote the use of more urban properties. The most difficult design standard to meet is parking, and the UU overlay would make parking basically not required. It wouldn't have a minimum per se. The applicant could also seek a variance for the reduction in parking. Although staff does not typically encourage the expansion of the CBD or central business district zone, the applicant could have also sought that zone district instead of the UU, as the CBD is just across Warren Avenue to the west. The proposed addition of the UU overlay is compatible with the surrounding area, according to UDC 5.6.9.A and B. The UU overlay district is intended for urban and infill development. The UU district is intended to transition and step down from the urban core and other urban areas of Cheyenne into surrounding neighborhoods. And the UU overlay district is applicable to various lands envisioned for urban development. A base zone district of P, MUB, or MUR must be in place in order for the UU to be applied. And the UU overlay would allow this property to redevelop. Property to the north received nearly identical consideration and is zoned MUR, but was developed prior to the UU and had received relief to certain requirements that the overlay would permit. I should also note when we developed the UU overlay, this area of the community on the east side of our downtown was also looked at as being an area for the UU overlay zone. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this addition of the UU to this property, and I stand for any questions.
Do you have any questions from committee? Tom?
Yes, sir. I guess I'm very concerned about the parking. There's virtually no parking there now. If you're going to make this residential a potential commercial site, where do you expect people to park?
Chair, through you, on-street parking is still available. The business just to the north, they also use the exact same thing. They are a pizza place that's to the north, and they utilize on-street parking as well. This is part of the Downtown Development Authority area, and right next to our downtown. So basically the parking would just be the on-street, but there would be on-street parking around any of these blocks.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, through you. I mean, if every property redevelops here into a potential commercial, I mean, it's already hard enough with the one commercial we have there. I don't see how this is going to work. Can you enlighten me?
Chair, through you.
Do we know what businesses are going in there?
So Chair, through you, the type of business that they're looking at putting in there is kind of a mix of retail with like an art gallery type situation for selling local art, and then potential yoga classes throughout the week.
Any follow-ups, Mr. Seagrave?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Rennie, any questions from you? Okay. Mr. Labor, anything?
No questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any public comment? Public comment. Hearing none, may I have a motion? Was that a motion?
Didn't know. I'm going to make sure I was waiting to be recognized.
Okay.
I will make a motion to approve.
Okay.
So
I have
we
a
can
motion.
just discuss it.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Okay. Hearing none, this motion dies. No recommendation in committee.
Number 12, resolution authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to sign a final plat for VOANR Cheyenne East, City of Cheyenne, Laramie County, Wyoming, located between Maxwell Avenue, Seymour Avenue, East 26th Street, and East 25th Street.
Okay. We have a staff report.
Chair and members of the committee, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. The plat before you is located between Maxwell Avenue, Seymour Avenue, East 26th Street, and East 25th Street. The property is zoned mixed-use business. The applicant is requesting approval of a final plat for roughly 1.7 acres of land. The proposed plat would vacate the existing alley and create one lot. This lot would be under one ownership and is already developed. The block perimeter is smaller than the maximum allowed by the UDC. And by vacating the alley, it reduces city maintenance requirements and becomes solely the responsibility of the property owner. The proposed lot is a buildable lot within the MUB zone. Half the lot is already developed and the other half is currently being developed. Staff does not believe that vacating the alley affects the walkability of the area, as alleys are not developed to the extent that streets are. This was in front of Planning Commission at their last meeting, and they did recommend approval. Staff recommends approval, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions from committee?
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Dr. Rennie,
Dr. Rennie.
did you have a question, sir?
I do. Conrad said the other half of the block was in the process of development. What's it being developed as?
Ms. Chair, through you, it is being developed with an assisted living facility. That is going to be
Mr. Chairman.
and it'll be owned and operated by Volunteers of America.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Laborn, any questions? Okay. So no further questions from committee. Do you have any public comment? Public comment? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from committee? Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Number 13, resolution certifying compliance with Wyoming State Statute 15-1-402 for the city-initiated annexation of various tracts of land completely surrounded by current city limits, situate in the Northeast Cheyenne, generally located north of Bevins Street, west of College Drive, and south of Dell Range Boulevard.
Okay, you have a staff report.
Chair and members of the committee, again, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. This resolution is the beginning process to start the city-initiated annexation of county pockets for our third area. So this is not the actual annexation ordinance or the annexation itself. This is just the resolution to begin that process. Again, this third area, it's south of Dell Range, north of Bevins, and then it is to the west of McCann Avenue. And is the area highlighted on the screen. So it's all these parcels that would be part of this next pocket annexation. So again, this is just the resolution to start that annexation process. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions from committee?
No, sir.
Okay. So a couple of questions. Just one is, when we're done with this one, there's what, 15 in this one? How many county pockets do we have left? Approximately.
Or in this one? No.
After this one? Okay, thank you. I asked the question and the planning development said they would get us the information on how many county pockets we had left. And we've talked to all these folks that are on board, or?
Ms. Chair, through you, we did have a meeting with residents of both this pocket and the next item that is on the agenda, which is the fourth area. We had that meeting 2 weeks ago on October 9th. I believe that was the Wednesday. I would not say every person is on board. We probably will have public comment at some point. There were folks who were on board. It was just a lot of questions of what this means really. So it's kind of a mix and match of those on board and those not.
Thank you. Any further questions from committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Mr. Connor, I'm sorry I missed that meeting, but I'm sure you must have informed them that this action was going to take place, and they had the opportunity as opponents or supporters to come here if they chose, and evidently they chose not to. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, through you, yes, they were. Basically, they were given all the dates of all the various meetings. There might not be anybody here today, probably because it's just the resolution. We did explain that this is the resolution to start the process. It's not the actual annexation itself. That annexation will be before the governing body starting November 12th will be the public hearing and the actual beginning of the annexation process for these two pockets. So I believe that is probably when we'll start to actually see public show up, as we did indicate to them that really these first couple of meetings, this one and then next Monday, are about the resolution to begin the process rather than the actual process itself.
Thank you. Okay. Any further comments or questions from committee? Hearing none, public comment. Public comment. Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Number 14, resolution certifying compliance with Wyoming State Statute 15-1-402 for the city initiated annexation of various tracts of land completely surrounded by current city limits, situate in the northeast Cheyenne, generally located east of Ridge Road, west of Whitney Road, and along Dell Range Boulevard.
Okay, staff report.
Gang, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. Same as the last item on the agenda. This is just the resolution to begin this area's annexation for these pockets. Same thing. We did meet with the same residents at the same meeting. But the area for County Pocket 4 is up on the screen. And this is basically just along Dell Range going out towards Whitney, grabbing all those pockets in that area. And again, I am available for any questions.
Any questions from committee? Questions from committee? Hearing none, public comment.
Mr. Chair, Seth Lloyd with the Planning and Development Department. After these two on the agenda, we will have 54 pockets remaining, assuming we don't do any more annexations, creating more pockets, or that individuals don't petition to annex their pocket before we get to them.
Okay. Are those pockets, are they all to the east side of town, or do we have them still scattered around on the south and north?
Mr. Chair, we do have them scattered around town. There's a few on the south. There's a couple on the west. Most of them are here on the east side though.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, further public comment. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from committee? Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Number 15, resolution expressing the support of the governing body for acceptance of real property from Stephanie White.
Okay. Staff report, please.
And Chair, members of the committee, Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. This is an item that is intended to clean up a platting issue that had occurred regarding the Back 40 subdivision and the gymnastics facility. Back when that was platted, unintentionally, there was a dual ownership created on a little small piece of the of that one lot that you can see on the exhibit there. What this does is this divests Dawser LLC's interest in that lot, and it clears up the ownership issue. This was a process we worked through with the city surveyor, and he had indicated that the quitclaim deed that you see attached here is one that would remove that ambiguity. I'm open for any questions that you may have regarding this item.
Okay, any questions from committee? Questions from committee? Okay, public comment. Any public comment? Hearing none. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Number 16, resolution expressing the determination by the governing body of the city of Cheyenne for the repeal of enacting resolutions and dissolution of specific city committees, commissions, and councils due to inactivity.
Okay, staff report.
Richard Johnson, Cheyenne City Council Ward 3, sponsor of this resolution. This goes back into a history that goes back about 8 months when I started looking into the contract licensing board after I started getting reports from constituents in regards to inappropriate behaviors by that board. When I went to the city's website to actually find the minutes from that meeting where this was brought up, I realized that there were several boards that were on the city website that I didn't even know existed. They'd never been on my list when I was council president or even as a counselor that they were able to be appointed to. So I started looking into what they had or how they had occurred. The first one I started looking at was the forestry one. This one actually on the website had a date and time that they actually met at CRMC. And it seemed the most legitimate, but I'd never even heard of this board before. So I contacted Mark Ellison with City Forestry and asked him, you know, if he knew anything about this board and if he had ever attended or met there. And he told me that this board preceded his time with the city of Cheyenne by over 10 years. It had not met. And so we discussed if there was any possibility of maybe the mayor rekindling this board and bringing it forward. And Mark told me that pretty much at the direction of what that board met, you know, like 10, 15 years ago, that was actually being handled currently by Rooted in Cheyenne, the nonprofit that works in association with the city. A couple of the other pieces in regards to the art in public places that had not met. I know that when I first got on here in 2015, I'd asked if I could be on that board, and Mayor Kaysen at the time told me that it hadn't met in, once again, over a decade. And so in 2017, 2018, myself, Marion Orr, Sylvia Hackle, and the Art Cheyenne boards with Bill Rinstrom and Desiree Brothy came together and actually made a change to the actual ordinance in this, and then signed up the MOU with Art Cheyenne. And so those two art boards were kind of handled through that MOU and not dissolved. And then after reviewing this with the city clerk's office and through Chief of Staff Ash, we realized that even though the ordinance had been changed, the Cheyenne Employees Board was, had been dissolved by ordinance back in 2022. And so what this does is I had asked Jennifer to kind of go through and find all the resolution numbers and the dates of their creation to see, due to inactivity, as it states in the resolution piece here, to actually kind of dissolve these. Just because they're dissolved now does not mean that if there's any future things that, say, for example, the Cheyenne City Employees Board, that if that actually gets rekindled, a new resolution could be drafted and actually set up new bylaws and things like that, in a completely different structure if that's what they want. But as far as the old way, yeah, we're basically scrubbing those off so that they can be taken off the city's website. There is no active data in regards to these boards on the city's website. As I've stated, they've kind of been redirected in other directions. You will see introduced on Monday's council meeting that myself and Sam Weinstein have come together to actually rewrite the resolution in regards to the creation of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Instead of just scrapping boards left and right, Sam believed that that one actually had a possibility of rekindling and thought he had some potential membership to rekindle that, even though they haven't met since, I believe, October of 2022. So you will see that resolution coming. But as far as today's, the 4 boards that have been included have either been currently dissolved by ordinance or have had their direction redirected by other nonprofits. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Councilman Johnson?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Councilman Johnson, I understand your interest in doing away with these boards, although they evidently had a function at some time. And the basic intents of those boards are continuing through other means. But I'm really intrigued by your initial comment of the inappropriate behavior that initiated your interest. Has that been resolved and dealt with?
From my understanding, yes, the president of that board has actually reached out to other members of the board in regards to retaliation and has had the conversation that, you know, as if you've sat in any of the boards that Charles oversees through the planning, that they have their annual renewal in regards to conflict of interest, in regards to retaliation, in regards to the city standards that we've sent up currently by resolution, not by ordinance, mind you, which is kind of another direction I'd like to head on. If you remember the resolution that Dr. Aldrich brought forth in 2023 and then was rewritten, I believe, by Dr. Rennie in 2023 in regards to how we wanted our boards and commissions to be handled in regards to bring them up to standards in regards to what happened, as Dr. Aldrich stated, with Gillette. And so when we, even though it was resolution, it was setting those guidelines, they actually weren't codified. So when I've actually been looking into that as well, is to take pieces out of those resolutions and actually codify them into some standards. But yes, to answer your question directly, from my understanding, the president of that board has addressed this with other board members in regards to some of the conflict of interest, retaliations, and conflict of interest.
So there's more to come.
Yeah, this has been going on since probably around February of this year. And so this is what I'm bringing forth now. But yes, I mean, if I'm not elected, then of course I'll ask, you know, Michelle or Ken or yourself to, you know, proceed in my passion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or comments from committee? Okay. Seeing none. Public comment. Public comment. Okay, hearing none. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from committee? Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Number 18E, Urban Renewal Development Agreement to award tax increment financing TIF for a development in the West Downtown Plan and Project Urban Renewal Area.
Okay. I have a staff report.
And Chair, members of the committee, Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. This is this is a development agreement related to tax increment financing in the West Downtown Urban Renewal Plan and Project area. This specifically is for a 101 unit apartment complex that will be located at the southwest corner of 19th and O'Neill Street, catty corner to Blacktooth Brewery. Recently, you have seen an application for a lot consolidation, which consolidates the lot into, or the parcels into one lot. Also, the Board of Adjustment has approved a conditional use for construction of an apartment complex at this location. This is zoned appropriately for this. The applicant has gone through the Urban Renewal Authority to seek tax increment financing for this project. What that would do is that tax increment financing would essentially divert the new taxes that would be generated from the base, which is today, into a special fiduciary account, which would be used to repay the developer for public-facing improvements that are essentially the gap that prevents the property from being developed. The amount of the TIF award that is, that the Urban Renewal Authority has awarded for this is, I'm sorry, I thought I had this right there. For the Blacktooth, it is $2,579,590 in TIF assistance. This increment is specifically linked to this development parcel. So any of the increment that's generated from this parcel, that would go towards the tax increment financing element until it is settled. The developer has anticipated an 18-year repayback of that tax increment. But it could last up to 20 years. I did a couple of different calculations based on this project. Right now at the Blacktooth property, the annual property taxes that are paid to all of our taxing agencies, which is city, county, state, school district, any other district that's taxed, right now, $6,165.20 is annually paid in taxes. The proposal for the Blacktooth development in their financials they had provided and what was reviewed by EPS, which is a peer review to identify if their project demonstrated a gap, they had estimated that their annual tax payment will be $140,000 per year. Essentially, what that means is there would be $136,000 roughly increment that would be forwarded over the developer annually until that total TIF award is met. And looking at this over the course of 20 years, if the property were to not develop, and the purpose of urban renewal is to remove a gap to allow development, because the assumption is if the gap is not removed, the property will remain stagnant and it will not redevelop and it will not generate additional taxes. If it's at as is with this current tax payment status, it is estimated that after 20 years, the as is tax payments would be just under $150,000. And that has a 2% annual inflationary amount that is thrown in there. Using the applicant's estimated tax payment of $140,000 annually, that would result in total, well, I mean, in 20 years, you'd have $2.8 million that will have been raised to help fund that gap. But the new resulting tax payment after the TIF is paid would be $140,000. So roughly that first year after the increment is paid off, all of the taxing agencies would be made whole, plus or minus a couple of $1,000 based on what it would have been if the land were not developed. And in that last example of the 140,000, I didn't even include the 2% inflationary number. If you include the 2% inflationary number that was in just the background, year 21 would have a tax payment of $208,032.64, comparable to the $9,116 that would be paid if the property stayed as is. As you can see in the memo, there are some discussions regarding eligible items that can be funded. What we've asked for of the developer is to clearly identify, as they submit their receipts for reimbursement, items that are public facing. Items that are typically considered public facing are facade improvements that are abutting rights of way, street trees, landscaping elements, infrastructure that is provided on-site, relocate and off-site, relocation of any of the utilities on the property, and making sure that any off-site improvements to serve the development are included. There is a request that land be considered as part of this urban renewal tax increment financing deal. We do have some concerns as staff that the land is not necessarily a public purpose, and that is part of the real estate deal. We have talked with the developer and their agent, and they would like to make a case to cover the land. I would like to note that staff has reviewed their list of anticipated reimbursables, and even without the land being included, they should be able to maximize their increment return to them. I'm open for any questions you may have regarding that.
Any questions from committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Mr. Bloom, is there anyone here from the Urban Renewal Authority Board?
And Chair, through you to Councilman Laybourne, no, not today.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Dr. Rennie.
Yeah, through you to Director Bloom. I guess I wanted, he'd given a list of the things that were eligible to use the TIF for. I think when we've approved the TIF, it's been for infrastructure improvements, for necessary sewer and water or streets, curb and gutter and the like. So, obviously they want to maybe expand that to streetscape, but I guess I'm struggling with this building facade construction really fall under what the role of the TIF was supposed to be.
Chair, members of the committee, and Councilman Rennie, Dr. Rennie. The urban renewal statutes, the urban renewal chapter of state statutes includes the Downtown Development Authority and the Urban Renewal Authority. They're side-by-side agencies. Facade improvement programs are ones that are commonly linked together. They are ones that have a public-facing element because they create a more vibrant atmosphere in the downtown. They also help enhance the community space. So those are traditionally considered public-facing improvements that are eligible for the public financing. The problem would be if if someone was suggesting funding of interior improvements, such as any light fixtures that might be in the building, other things that are just casual furnishings. I would hand this over to the applicant to talk a little bit more about how they envision their eligible activities to fall into this exhibit under developer cost, work cost, which is shown in the development agreement.
Okay, let me check, see if we have any more questions for you before we step down. Tom, do you have any questions for Director Bloom?
No, sir. He handled the land question for me.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Public comment. And Dr. Rennie, if you'd like to restate your question.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was curious about, like I said, we've used TIFs in the past for infrastructure improvements to improve sewer and water service, curb and gutter, like. I just was questioning the use of facade improvements.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, Chair, through you. My name is it on now? There we go. I speak loud anyways. But Chair, through you, my name is Mark Christensen. I am with AVI PC. We are a representative for the developer, Stencil Group. So with this coming forward, we had worked with city staff. One of the things that we looked at with the facade improvements is going above and beyond what the facade requirements are for downtown. So we do have, we are located in the Central Business District. With that being said, there are no design requirements for the Central Business District in the zoning code. So like some other programs that the DDA has with the facade improvement program and stuff like that, we looked at that as an example of how we can look forward to using public monies for facade enhancements. With that being said too, we'd be open to any stipulations the city might have on that. I know frequently that could be a facade easement or something like that, that we'd be open to exploring that, but that's how it has typically worked with the DDA and facade improvement programs as well.
Dr. Rennie, any follow-ups?
No, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from committee for developer? Okay. Any further public comment?
So, Chair, through you, just for the record, again, Mark Christensen, I would like to state this process has been a great process with the city. We do believe that this urban renewal authority and the chapters within the Wyoming urban renewal statutes, this is the sort of thing that these chapters in the Wyoming state code are envisioning. It's the redevelopment of these blighted areas. There's blighted buildings on these subject property. There's also some utility lines that need to be rerouted. Just a lot of things that are in the way of the redevelopment of these properties. We did send a memo to the city council, which outlined how we believe that land to be an eligible expense. With that being said, we wanted that to be something that the city council consider. Based on the development agreement, we do have a section that is written in there, which is section 9, and it overviews the reimbursement process. With the reimbursement process being said, it gives the city a lot of leverage to review what those eligible expenses are. So though we are coming forward to you today for the allocation of what those eligible expenses are, we will come to a point with the city when the development is being worked on and being completed that we do have to provide these receipts and details of what these eligible expenses are. And then those will have a final approval by the planning department. With that being said, we wanted the city to look into the possibility of the inclusion of land. We do note that our eligible expenses, even without the inclusion of land, do meet the specified TIF amount. However, we, being AVI, believe that there are significant hurdles to redevelopment in the community, and one of those being the acquisition of land. We do envision there being some scenarios where different parcels located within the downtown, located within the West Edge, have a significant hurdle for redevelopment. And one of the only ways to get the redevelopment of that property to come to fruition would be the inclusion of land. We laid out in our memo the various different components of the Wyoming Urban Renewal Code that we believe gives council the ability to exercise this power. And we'd look forward to the discussion with council on that item today or at the larger city council meeting on Monday, but did want to bring that forward for council consideration.
Thank you. Just one question on the land. Are you looking for the 2 million and change plus the land, or the land in lieu of part of that 2 million?
Chair, through you to the committee, it would be included within that amount. We are requesting a maximum amount of 2.5 million for this project and some change. The land would be included within that amount. So in no situation of any combination of the different eligible expenses would we go over that 2.5 million request.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? For the developer? Okay. Hold on. Okay, any further public comment?
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your time today. My name is Nate Stencil. I'm with the Stencil Group. We're the developer builder for the project. Really excited about the opportunities here in Cheyenne. We're a vertically integrated company, and we are the developer, the builder, and long-term owner and manager of these buildings. So just really excited to work through the Urban Renewal Authority and to work with city staff to get to this point. Really excited about the opportunities and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment or questions from developer? Okay. Do we have any further public comment?
Brandon, you should be able to unmute yourself if you have a question. Brandon, online with your hand raised, did you have a comment?
Anyone else? Okay. Okay, hearing no further public comment, do I have a motion?
Don't move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions from committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Laybourne.
having read through this and listening to the comments that were made here today, and the fact that no one is here from the Urban Renewal Authority Board, that concerns me. And I look forward to learning more about how this came about, and particularly the very interesting question to be considered, not today, evidently, but at the meeting Monday night regarding the land as a allowable element. And as my experience has been on the city council, generally those type of discussions and conditions are really best developed and understood through the process, not at the council meeting. I'm certainly no expert in this, and it's a fascinating matter. I've read through the material here today, but I'm going to be a no on this until I understand it better and understand some of the concepts here that seem to require clarification. That flow between one element of the statute with the DDA and the other element of the statute with urban renewal is something I intend to take up with the attorney's office. Certainly, I, as a representative of this ward and having a lot of interest in projects that are underway here, this certainly sounds good. I think some of the concepts here that would set precedent concern me. So I look forward to learning more before the council meeting. And particularly, I'd like to discuss some of this with the Urban Renewal Authority Board. I'm disappointed they're not here today to speak to their recommendation. This is something I know that is in common usage throughout the country and really brings some benefits. I'd also point out that we have quite a number of these projects that, or districts or parcels that are under consideration. So my comments equally apply to the next item as well. I think that there's some knowledge here that certainly I need, and certainly I think the council needs, because of the initiating matter here and how that would occur with these various elements of the central business district. That's I expressed my concern about that earlier when we looked at the site or the actual parcel and how it was put together. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Seagrave.
I too share the concern over the inclusion of land and facade as far as being eligible for this this program. The next item we're going to look at is in Jolly Rogers, and if I understand the facade issue correctly, they're saying it aligns with the DDA, but if we allow it in the DDA district to be considered as an appropriate funding item, will it set a precedent for other parts of the city? That goes for the land as well. If I understood Mr. Christensen correctly, they may not need it for this project, but they're trying to set it up as a precedent for future projects. So before Monday, I think staff and the council and the administration need to get together and decide what is and what is not considered items for reimbursement under this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Dr. Rennie?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, hearing none, hearing no more questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, those opposed?
No.
Okay.
Number 18F, Urban Renewal Development Agreement to award tax increment financing TIF for a development in the Jolly Rogers Plan and Project Urban Renewal Area.
Okay. Staff report.
Chair, members of the committee, Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. This is very similar to the last item, so I'm not going to stretch it out too much. The difference here is this is a 194 unit development that will be built in 2 phases. It is located on US 30 to the west of Whitney Road. This is the area that was formerly developed as the Jolly Rogers RV facility. The tax increment financing request is $4,782,824. So that's a little bit larger than the one for the item you just heard before you. In looking at those numbers, based on what their estimated tax payments would be over the course of the next 20 years, they're estimating that it would be $170,000 annual in tax payments, as compared to today's $6,000, about $6,200 that are paid on the structures right now. This paints a similar scenario that at year 21 and 22, the taxing agencies that are able to recapture any of their lost tax revenue after the TIF has been repaid. This one also includes land as an item, land acquisition, and is labeled in Exhibit A as a cost. Staff does have concerns with the land being included in the event that the governing body wishes to remove that land element. It would have to be noted on Monday's meeting. We could have memos prepared and provided to provide additional information, but it could be an exhibit that could be swapped out. I'm open for any questions you have regarding this item.
Okay, any questions from committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Seagrave.
Yes, in the request for this property, was the facade included in the funding?
Chair, through you to Councilmember Seagrave, on this exhibit that they provided for this item, there are elements of the facade that are proposed for funding as eligible work that would be reimbursed under the TIF.
Mr. Chair, I would request that Director Bloom have appropriate language prepared for Monday to exclude land and facade. I don't know if that will be passed or not, but I'd like to have the language available. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Rennie, any questions for staff?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Laybourne, any questions? Okay.
No.
Okay, public comment.
Good afternoon, Chair. Again, Mark Christensen with AVI. So again, this is another project that we have been working on for quite some time. The urban renewal process is iterative. There's numerous different cycles to it. So we have gone through, we started with the urban renewal plan project, which came before City Council a couple months ago. Then we moved forward with conditional use application. then after that, the urban renewal tax increment financing applications. And I would encourage council to look into the findings of the required economic and planning system study that was completed on both sites. It does acknowledge that there's a substantial gap in both of these projects. So we're looking forward to looking at all these public improvements, whether they be visual public improvements such as facade enhancements, looking at the acquisition of land as a removal of a barrier. The intent of the urban renewal code is to eliminate blight. And we believe that one of the biggest hurdles to the elimination of blight would be that acquisition of land. And again, believe the Wyoming state statutes do give broad authority to the city to carry out these urban renewal activities. So I would encourage you to look into the economic and planning system study, look into the memo as well. And we are looking forward to that discussion. With that being said, I'm available for any other questions as well.
Any questions, committee, for the developer?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Laybourne.
I see you have the report from the, guess it has been referred to as a peer review.
Mm-hmm.
You just mentioned that evidently this group is looking at the statutory requirements as well.
No,
So do you have any correspondence or communication from any legal authority or office, I guess I could say, in regard to these interpretations of statute?
Chair, through you to Councilman Laybourne, EPS doesn't note the eligible expenses. They just note what the financial gap is. The interpretation on eligible expenses is done on, we have provided that to the city, what we believe is eligible, and then Mr. Stencil from previous projects as well.
Are those Wyoming projects?
Not to this point.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from the committee to the developer? Okay. Any further public comment?
Thank you very much again. I just wanted to get up and speak to kind of the process of the URA and moving through it all. We have utilized tax increment finance on many different projects in many different areas throughout Minnesota, South Dakota, and in Wyoming. These are kind of the first because you guys are kind of at the forefront of establishing a tax increment finance policy. The reality is that around the country today, a lot of projects aren't getting done due to the hurdles of construction costs and financing. And therefore, the projects that are happening are really dependent on figuring out ways to fill the gaps. And now more than ever, it's important. We haven't done a project in 2 years without some sort of gap funding. These are great projects for the community. And not to say that in a few years when things may change, interest rates, construction costs, those can be variables for that reduce the need for gap funding. In this case, we've went through the URA, through the EPS review. There's severe gaps, and to the point that there's absolute zero chance that either of these projects would happen without assistance. And I commend Cheyenne and for starting to utilize the tool. And I hope that we can, be one of the first people to put it to use and do some great projects within your community. So I just wanted to say that. As far as the land conversation, in our case, it's not necessary. I completely understand AVI's positioning. In some cases that may be important in the future. In our case, it's not very important, and I just don't want to lose sight that that's not a battle that and as important to our projects, and I just don't want that to get lost in the mix here. So, all right.
Okay. Any comments or questions from committee for the developer? Okay. Hearing none.
Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Okay, Brandon, do you want to give it a shot one more time? Mr. Swain, are you there?
No?
He asked me a question in the chat, but we just don't take questions in the chat, so I don't want to.
Okay. Brandon, can you get on or?
He says no comment.
Okay. Okay, hearing no further public comment, may I have a motion?
So
Mr.
moved.
Chairman, Dr. Reading. Second.
Okay, so a motion is second. Any comments? Any?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as we listen to this, some of the unease that we're having is including the land in the TIF reimbursement. And I can understand how that could be really important, some projects down the line. And Mr. Christensen's correct when he says the purpose of using a TIF district is to remove blight, and we have designated these areas as blighted. So I guess the question I thought of during the earlier discussion was, if we allow the land to go ahead and be included in the TIF reimbursement, I mean, what is the worst case scenario? At some point, someone may initiate a lawsuit that tells us, no, you can't do that. And then the developer's got to do it without that. I mean, to me, that would seem to be the worst thing that could happen if we actually allowed that to be included. So does our staff or Mr. Stencil have a thought on that?
Chair, members of the committee, I will forward that on to our city attorney's office. And they'll have a response to you on Monday regarding that. We'll include that in that preparation of that motion.
Okay. Any further?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
As I think about it, I mean, to me, the worst case scenario, I mean, it's something we haven't done before. And again, Mr. Stencil's right. We are on the forefront as a WAM board member. We're way ahead of everybody else in the state on using TIF districts. And again, the purpose was to generate growth and rehabilitation in areas. So to me, if the worst case scenario is if we include the land and we're at some point in the future told, no, you guys can't do that, I don't see how there's a lot of repercussions, negative repercussions for the city. So I'll go ahead and support it.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments from committee?
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In our the presentation that was given to us here today on page 5 and 6 are 8 what I consider to be similar projects that have been recently built in the community. And I'm sure we're all aware of how that has occurred without the benefit of the urban renewal tax increment funding. So my question is this an advantage that should be carried forward to the extent that I'm seeing here today? And the point I would make is that here in West Cheyenne, and certainly the previous project, and I think it's appropriate to compare them, is something that we've worked on for many years. This building itself was a public project that acquired property for this purpose, and we really do have a consideration here, I think, of redevelopment, the projects that we have underway, the efforts we've made in drainage, for instance, to make this area more safe for these purposes, really makes me wonder what is the great blight at the Jolly Roger site. That's a part of Cheyenne that is experiencing quite a bit of growth, quite a bit of new projects, the new work on the highway. I contend that it might meet some consideration in the process as blighted. But I think that misses the original and what I think is the important intent of really dealing with something that is more logical here on this part of town. And are we giving an advantage to some people based on the presentation of the agent for the applicant? That question in my mind of the lack of analysis, and I'm not sure what the city attorney might come up with by Monday, of Wyoming statute, and of course, the comment that was made earlier here that we are looking at this on a statewide basis. I don't believe that the possibility of a later legal action to find that we had included elements that were not appropriate is really something we should be doing. So again, I look forward to learning more about this, and I'm a no.
Any further comments or questions from committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The councilman raises some questions about whether the area should be considered blighted and eligible for a TIF. Those questions should have been asked, months ago when we did designate that as a blighted area. So question now is, we have made that designation. So, the TIF does apply in this case.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that the very point that was made a moment ago applies here. Circumstances and information as these type of developments and issues proceed certainly do lead to, at least on my part, the consideration that those circumstances really call for more examination. I certainly never conceived when we voted, and I believe that included me, to include this, that it would ever reach the point that it has here with the purchase of the land and the aesthetic considerations of the outward facing elements of the construction. That certainly was not made clear, and now that it is clear, that's the basis of my opposition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments from committee? Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, those opposed?
No.
Okay, being as there's no further business coming in front of the Public Services Committee, we are adjourned.